Hello, everyone, and welcome. We invite you to share your name, location, and the name of your college or university in the chat. It's always nice to see what colleges and universities are represented, both within the US and internationally. So welcome and greetings to our second annual Catholic Nonviolence Initiative Fall Series. I warmly welcome students and faculty and those who are live streaming through Facebook and all who will be viewing the recording of tonight's event. My name is Michelle Sherman, and I served as the project director for nonviolence and campus outreach at Pax Christi USA. And I'm also on the leadership team for the Pax Christi Young Adult Caucus, and I'm an adjunct professor at the University of Dayton. Together with Elion Lakem with EcoCare Now and David Mueller from Casa Esther in Amro, Wisconsin, we've been organizing this series to promote the mission and goals of the Catholic Nonviolence Initiative. The initiative, a project of Pax Christi International, seeks to raise awareness of and increase our understanding of nonviolence as a strategy, a way of life, and a key part of our faith. Last week, we discussed the theological foundations of environmental justice, and tonight, we turn to the multifaceted nature and realities of environmental violence, a theme that Pope Francis emphasized in 2015 with Laudato Si, and again in Laudate Deum, which was released this past week. Last week's video and study guide are now available on the Week 1 tab on the Fall Series website, and we'll drop that in a chat in a moment. So we hope that you join us each Monday in October. Registration will remain open the entire month, so please encourage your friends and colleagues to join us. We thank our sponsors who have made tonight and this whole series possible. And before we move to our panel for this evening, let's take a moment to steady our hearts and minds and join in prayer. Tonight we have a quote from Laudate Deum. Our world has become so multipolar, and at the same time so complex that a different framework for effective cooperation is required. It is not enough to think only of balances of power, but also of the need to provide a response to new problems and to react with global mechanisms to the environmental, public health, cultural, and social challenges, especially in order to consolidate respect for the most elementary human rights, social rights, and the protection of our common home. And next we offer the peace prayer of St. Francis, adapted by Jean Schwitter's Franciscan sister. This prayer was offered by Olga Sarabia, Pax Christi Ambassador of Peace. And as we read through it, I invite you to choose a word or a phrase and drop that into the chat. God, fashion us anew as doorways to your peace. Where there is violence and hostility, let us bring compassion. Where there is abuse of power, let us bring dignity and respect. Where there is deliberate deceit, let us bring truth and authentic concern. Where there is a shattering of dreams, let us bring visions of hope. Where there is conflict in relationships, let us bring reconciliation. And where there is disregard for creation, let us bring reverence and care. O divine creator, let us not so much seek to be centered on ourselves as to focus on the needs of those neglected. To be appreciated by others as to further the gifts of the forgotten. To be materially secure as to share our wealth with the poor. For it is through awareness of injustice that suffering will be healed It is by simplifying our lifestyle that consumerism will lose its grip. And it is through a selfless commitment to love that peace will be reborn. And now I'm so excited to introduce you to Rivera Sun, who will serve as our moderator for the evening. Author and activist Rivera Sun has written numerous books and novels, including The Dandelion Insurrection and the award-winning Ari Ara series. She is the editor of Nonviolence News and the program coordinator for Campaign Nonviolence. Her articles are syndicated by Peace Voice and published in hundreds of journals nationwide. Rivera serves on the advisory board of World Beyond War and the board of Backbone Campaign. And you can learn more about her on her website, riverasun.com. Rivera, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Thank you for opening with those beautiful prayers. And for everyone who is gathered together tonight for this important conversation. We have some amazing guest speakers who have been doing this work on the front lines around the world. And this is going to be an incredible evening. So we're going to hear from 3 speakers. Each of our guests is going to speak for 15 minutes, and then we'll have time for questions and answers after they all speak. And then we'll wrap up in about an hour and 30 minutes. So you're welcome to type your questions into the chat box throughout the presentations, and we will be monitoring the chat throughout the program. As you know, a Q&A gets a lot more exciting when you go out on a limb and ask that question you may think is silly or must have been asked 1,000 times before. But that's what we're here for, to study and learn together. So please do put those questions in the chat box. Our first speaker tonight is going to be Sharon Lavigne. Sharon is the 2021 Goldman Prize winner for North America. She is and the 2022 Laterre Medal recipient from the University of Notre Dame. She leads Rise St. James, which is a faith-based grassroots organization that fights for environmental justice in St. James Parish, Louisiana. And there's really nothing more I can say except that she's a personal hero of mine and many others right now. Sharon, welcome. Thank you so much for being here to share your story.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here tonight with you all. I'm from St. James, Louisiana. I live in a rural area between New Orleans and Baton Rouge. And in Louisiana, we have parishes. Like you all might have counties, we have parishes in our state. So I live in the middle of Cancer Alley, which is an 85-mile stretch between New Orleans and Baton Rouge. And I've been fighting petrochemical industries since 2018, when Formosa Plastics said that they would be built 2 miles from my home. That's when I went to God and I spoke before him. And I asked him, what should I do? If I should leave my home, the home that he gave me. I asked him if I should sell my land that came from my grandparents, and he told me no. So that's when he put this fight in me to fight against Formosa Plastics. And this first picture is the picture of our first march that we had in St. James on November 3rd, after we formed our organization, Rise St. James. Next slide, please. This is one of the pictures that we took when I was speaking on our sacred grounds that our ancestors are buried. Formosa Plastics would not allow us to go on the property. So we had to get permission. Our attorneys had to write for permission for us to go on the sacred grounds to have a service, you know, with our ancestors. And when you see me looking in the air like that, I saw something going across the field as I was speaking. And I felt like our ancestors were excited that we were there and we remembered them. But we didn't know that there were grave sites on the property until Formosa purchased the land. We found out 17 months prior to them going to the parish council to let them know that there were grave sites. They found human skulls, human bones, and they would not alert the parish officials. So we had an archaeologist that confirmed that there were graves of our ancestors, and Formosa Places would desecrate those graves even more. So next slide, please. And then this is just a little bit about me, where I'm from, and I taught school for 38 years and founded RISE. I retired in 2019. I dedicated my whole life to doing this work. And next slide, please. That's my home where I'm sitting. That's where the vision from God came. And what is our mission? Our mission, first of all, we are a faith-based, grassroots, nonprofit organization fighting for clean air and water, as well as the prevention and expansion of petrochemical industries in St. James Parish. Next slide, please. And this is one of the industries. I'm standing in front of American Styrenics. They make styrofoam. And I had to go out there on the weekend to take this picture, because during the week they have the security guard that's out there. They always patrol the area, and if you stop on the property to take a picture or anything, they would ask you to leave. So I went on a weekend. we took the picture, so no one came out there to tell us anything. Next slide, please. All right, this was the first march that we had in September of 2018 when I was a member of the Help Association. We had our march down a street called Burton Lane, and Pastor Samuel Jones was there with his church members, and the community came out. And we protest that Formosa Plastics was trying to come in, and another industry called Wan Chemical, they were trying to come in also. So after this march, we asked the Help Association to let's do other things to stop Formosa from coming in. They refused. So that's when we started RISE in October of 2018. Next slide, please. This is our first service that we had with Father Vincent Dufresne, where we are standing out there. That's the grave sites. They put a partial fence around it after we complained about them going on that grave site to desecrate the grounds. So we had our first service out there. We had people to sing. We had prayers. It was like a church service. Next slide, please. This is when the Bishop of Baton Rouge came to commemorate the grave site. And we had another church service. It was around All Saints Day. Next slide, please. This is some of the areas down Cancer Alley. This is one of the grave sites down Cancer Alley where we live. And they are poisoning our land. They're poisoning our air and our water. And just like I said, there's an 80-mile stretch between New Orleans and Baton Rouge. We have 150 petrochemical plants, mostly in the 4th and 5th districts, where the predominantly Black people live and poor people live. So that's when they target communities like that, because they thought that no one would speak up, but we did. Next slide, please. These are some of the risks, the toxic air pollutants, like ethylene oxide, that's cancer causing. Benzene is in our drinking water, it's in the river. They dump benzene and these chemicals in the water. And we have formaldehyde, is known to cause throat cancer and leukemia. And we have a whole slew of other chemicals that's not on this list right here. Next slide, please. This is one of our billboards that we put up. We said, let the doorknob hit you, and you just fill in the blank. Our billboard says, stop Formosa. St. James Parish Council can save our lives. St. James Parish Council is the reason that we have all this pollution in our 5th and 4th district. because they are in the pockets of industry. They don't care about our lives. All they care about what the chemical company gives them. Next slide, please. This is one of the first meetings that I went to, trying to appeal to the parish council, but they still voted for Formosa Plastics to come in. And on the right, that's our first march that we had on November 3rd of 2018. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. We formed a coalition to try to fight these petrochemical industries that's trying to come in. So we partnered with St. John the Baptist, and we partnered with some of the organizations in New Orleans and throughout Cancer Alley. And we formed a coalition, and we called the Coalition Against Death Alley. And I'm on the front row right there between Robert Taylor and Pat Bryan. And we had some students there with us. And we went to the governor's office to try to speak with him. And he went out the back door. And we were told that he went to a barbecue. He wouldn't come out to speak with us, to hear our concerns. Next slide, please. This is another event that we had at another time on the site that Formosa plans to build, which they are not going to build. Next slide, please. This is one of the marches, not really a march. This is when Administrator Regan from the EPA came down to see firsthand what's going on. And he said that it touched his heart. So we still haven't gotten any change yet. We're still hoping and praying that something would happen where we can stop all of this pollution. And in Burden Land, there's two industries, Marathon and New Star, and Burden Land is sandwiched in. There are people that live there, and they are steady polluting them. Next slide, please. This is when we went to DC last year, October 25th of last year. We asked President Biden to declare Cancer Alley a climate emergency because people are sick, getting mostly cancer, and people are dying. They are dying so fast. Sometimes we had 2 and 3 funerals in 1 week. We just buried one of my friends. His name was Matt Rodrigo. He had bone cancer. He battled bone cancer for 10 years and he passed. Then a week later, his sister passed. And three months prior to him passing, his mother passed. So they're dropping like flies, especially in St. James and St. John the Baptist Parish and Ascension Parish. Next slide, please. This is another picture of, we filed a lawsuit against Formosa Plastics, and the judge ruled in our favor last year in September, and Formosa is appealing it. And the Department of Environmental Quality is appealing it also. So they don't want us to declare victory until it's completely done, until Formosa completely go away. And we know it will go away because God didn't put this fight in us for nothing. And because God is on our side and he's tired of his people getting sick and dying. Next slide, please. We filed a lawsuit against our parish council members and our planning commissioners in St. James Parish. And Shamara is in the picture. That's my daughter, along with Gail LaBeouf and Barbara Washington. We said enough is enough. It's too much that's going on in St. James, and our public officials are not doing anything to help us to stop this madness. So we had to file a lawsuit, and they are appealing it also. Next slide, please. This is the playground where South Louisiana Methanol wanted to be built, and they left. After the Army Corps of Engineers told them to go back and do a whole new application, they packed up and left. They wanted to be built 1,500 feet from the fence line of our park in Welcome in St. James Parish. It's the only playground that our children have to go to. And they wanted to be built right next to the playground. but the permit that they had was old. And the Army Corps of Engineers told them to go back and do a whole new permit, a whole new application. And they packed up and left. And that was another victory for us because we fought them also. Next slide, please. We also have an industry that's trying to come in. It's called DG Fuels. They're going to make jet fuels. We made signs say moonshine is our home, no DG Fuels. 5th District Lives Matter, no DG Fuels. DG Fuels, you are not welcome here. They are trying to come in also. And our parish officials, I'm pretty sure they will vote for them, to get that permit to come in. So we have to be on our P's and Q's and fight everything that comes into St. James Parish, including fighting our politicians. Next slide, please. We went to Taiwan in May of this year, me and Diane Wilson and Nancy Bowie. We went to talk to the shareholders of Formosa Plastics, asking them to stop Formosa Plastics. When I spoke to them, I asked them, would they stop it? And they speak a different language from us, but they listen to our speeches, but they haven't gotten back with us. They haven't given us any feedback from when we went out there. So next slide, please. I went to Washington, D.C. To speak in front of the congressional hearing on plastics. And I spoke, and one of the senators was very nice, and one of them wasn't not so nice. And we explained to him about the plastics and all, and he just didn't want to hear what we had to say. But we did speak out there on June the 15th of this year. Next slide, please. This is our group. This is Rise St. James. This is our members. There's some of our members, some of them couldn't come, but these are the majority of our members in Rise St. James. And we also try to educate the public on what's going on, because a lot of people don't really know. And whenever we find out something is going on, it's mostly after the fact. When after the permit is already done, our parish council members don't let us know anything. We have to find out on our own. So that's one reason why I'm glad that we are Rise St. James. Next slide. Do we have any more slides? That's the last one?
That's the last one.
Okay, so if you ever want to get in touch with us, you can go to risestjames.org. And you could also see us on Facebook and Instagram. And thank you all for having me.
Thank you so much for being with us and sharing the incredible perseverance that you've put into this critical life or death struggle for not just for your community, but really for all of us. We know that what's being made there in Cancer Alley then goes out into more communities to cause more suffering and more pain, and contributes to the climate crisis and the toxic pollution that so many communities are struggling with as well. So I know many of us feel direct solidarity with you. We are very grateful for your work and the work of Rise St. James. And we'll be finding out from you later on more about what we can be doing to help you more.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Our next speaker tonight is Brother Rodrigo de Castro Amadei Péret. He is a Franciscan brother with a background in civil engineering, philosophy, and theology. He's an advisor to the Special Commission on Integral Ecology and Mining of the National Conference of Bishops of Brazil, and is a member of the Executive Committee for the Inter-Franciscan Service of Justice, Peace, and Ecology of the Conference of Franciscan Family of Brazil. He also serves as an International Partners in Mission Regional Vice Chair for Latin America and the Caribbean. What brings him to the call tonight in particular is that Brother Rodrigo has 39 years of experience working on land conflicts as a member of the Pastoral Land Commission. He's a board member of the Churches and Mining Network and of the People's Dialogue Network in Latin America and Africa. Brother Rodrigo, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you so much. I will start with a short video on the reality I'm going to be talking about. And here. In this short video clip, we witness the chart reality of violence against nature through two mining dam collapses in my state. The first caused 20 deaths and affected 434-mile stretch along the Doce River to the ocean, while the second one resulted in 270 casualties and devastated Paraopeba River ecosystem, all this in Southeast Brazil. In sequence, the scenes reveal the ongoing impact of mining either legal or illegal, in the Amazon. With the change of government after disastrous Bolsonaro's term, Brazilian society confronted a dire situation concerning the Yanomami people. Mine expansion led to environmental destruction, disease, malnutrition, and significant losses among the Yanomami community. Mining released harmful heavy metals into the rivers, contaminating water sources and causing deforestation, resulting in water and food shortages. More than 570 Yanomami children died of malnutrition over the past 4 years. This emphasizes Pope Francis' message on the importance of the interconnectedness to care for the earth. Violence against nature is a systemic and deeply rooted in, with the economy being a major driver. The dominant economic system treats nature as a resource to exploit, to commodify, consume, and discard. Practice to obtain raw materials are predatory, rooted in capital accumulation through intensive and destructive private expropriation of natural resources. Since the 1970s, the conversion of nature into capital proved contradictory due to the limited resources and lead to quest for sustainability. As a result, they invented the concept of green economy, and it gained traction after 2008 and 2009 financial crisis, with some countries adopting Green New Deals to stimulate their economies and promising to promote sustainability. The UN Conference on Sustainable Development 2012 was a pivotal for green economy concept, although it fell short of expectations. The UN Environmental Program's Global Green New Deal proposed a combination of political actions to address immediate threats such as climate change, energy insecurity, water scarcity, ecosystem deterioration, and global poverty. The path forward should involve reducing carbon dependence, protecting ecosystems and water resources, and alleviating poverty. However, the path taken by green economy is that of a technical instrumental logic at the service of the ecological restructuring of capitalism. It focuses on technological transformations, commoditization of nature, and more markets as an exit to the crisis, such as replacing fossil fuels with renewable energy technologies. This current approach overlooks raw material supplies and impacts. It leads to sacrifice zones, inequalities, and environmental harm, neglecting the necessary lifestyle transformation and potentially increasing social disillusionment and authoritarian alternatives. Concerning energy transition based on new technologies for energy capture, storage, and distribution, it paradoxically increases mining in the specific minerals, contradicting the concept of clean energy. Mining results in adverse social and environmental consequences, despite certain mining sector claims of sustainable or green mining. Relying solely on technological change, the energy transition without addressing the intensity of global energy consumption is a false solution, especially when the horizon is to keep the standards of life in the rich countries. Pope Francis, in Laudate Deum, in section 2, specifically about a growing technocratic paradigm, highlights in paragraph 35 the danger of profit-driven mentality that disregards the environment and the well-being of the marginalized. This section emphasizes the reliance solely on technical solutions to environmental problems is inadequate, and he calls for a more responsible approach to addressing this concern. It's interesting to see in chapter 25, when he states that the world should not be an object of exploitation and unlimited ambition. In paragraph 27, he emphasizes that a healthy ecology results from the interaction between human and environment as seen in indigenous cultures. Pope Francis' exhortation underscores that the current system creates a rupture with the earth, leading to blindness. This highlights the Pope's approach to listen to the cries of the poor and the earth from a particular standpoint. In this case, the standpoint he chose was of the indigenous people. Pope Francis, when talking about global decisions, like in the case of the conference of the climate change, the COPs clearly contest the technocratic paradigm, stating in chapter 57 of Laudate Deum, I quote, he says, I consider it's essential to insist that to seek only technical remedy to each environmental problem which comes up, it's to separate what is in reality interconnected and to mask the true and the deepest problems of the global system. It's true, he says, that efforts at adaptation are needed in the face of evils that are irreversible in short term. Also, some interventions in technological advances that make it possible to absorb and capture gas emissions have proved promising. Nonetheless, we risk remaining trapped in the mindset of pasting and papering over cracks, while beneath the surface there is a continuing deterioration to which we continue to contribute. To suppose that all problems in the future will be able to solve by new technical inventions is a form of homicidal pragmatism, like pushing a snowball down the hill. And I finalize with Laudato Si' session 3 on international politics. It's very interesting. From paragraph 37 to 43, Pope Francis calls for reconfiguring multilateralism. He highlights the role of civil society in addressing global challenges and promoting ethics, advocating for more inclusive and rights-focused system. This echoes the final part of the scenes of the video clip I showed, where native people and citizens in Brazil's capital organized to defend indigenous land against the influence of green capitalism. And the same we just heard from our previous speaking, talking about all the resistance they are doing against the pharmaceutical industry. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Brother Rodrigo, for lifting up those interconnected issues and how we can't go for quick tech solutions that rely on the same old resource acquisition systems that have gotten us into this mess with all the myriad sufferings that those systems are causing currently, have caused historically, and will continue to cause if we don't make a profound shift in how we exist on this beautiful planet. Thank you so much. I want to remind people once again that there will be time for Q&A. We would love it if you would put your questions into the chat box. And, please do not be shy about that. Our third speaker this evening cannot be with us in person, but has sent a video for you all, as if she was right here with us. Sister Nathalie Kangaji is a dedicated religious sister affiliated with the Canonesses of St. Augustine within the Notre Dame congregation since December 1994. Sister Nathalie is a human rights lawyer and environmental activist who hails from the Democratic Republic of Congo. In 2008, she established a legal aid center in Kolwezi, a town that's located in the south of the country, to help advocate for responsible mining and safeguard the rights of the most vulnerable populations. These are people who often find themselves up against powerful multinational corporations who are involved in extractive industries and various forms of environmental harm. Sister Nathalie is an active member of the Laudato Si movement in the DRC and actively engages in raising awareness among Catholic nuns regarding environmental and social issues. Sister Nathalie has sent a video of her talk, which is titled The Multifaceted Nature and Realities of Environmental Violence, which is, of course, the theme for this evening. In this video, she's going to speak about artisanal mining, which is freelance mining by individuals rather than by a corporation or a company. We just want to let you know that the translation of this video was auto-generated, so there may be some minor errors as this was not professionally translated, but it does allow us to appreciate what Sister Nathalie is saying. Thank you.
Bonjour à tous, bonjour à chacun, à chacune de vous pour la présence à cette conversation. Je suis désolée de n'être pas avec vous en présentiel pour cet exposé et souffrais que je puisse quand même partager avec vous tout en étant à distance. Je voudrais, avant de présenter mon intervention, remercier les organisateurs de m'avoir donné cette opportunité pour parler de ces sujets préoccupants pour notre maison commune en général et d'une manière particulière pour la République démocratique du Congo, mon pays, à savoir la nature et les réalités multiples de la violence environnementale. En fait, je suis membre d'une organisation basée à Kolwezi, en République démocratique du Congo. Kolwezi, c'est une ville principalement minière, considérée aujourd'hui comme la capitale mondiale du cobalt. Ces minerais stratégiques pour la transition écologique. Et donc, depuis bientôt 10 ans, comme organisation, nous nous opposons à l'extractivisme souvent aveugle, exercé au détriment des populations locales et de l'environnement. Ma présentation va graviter autour des 3 points essentiels. Pour commencer, je dirai un mot sur l'extractivisme en général en République démocratique du Congo. Ensuite, je vais aborder la question de l'extractivisme en rapport avec les minerais stratégiques du Congo et je pourrai terminer par quelques défis. La République démocratique du Congo est un immense pays au cœur de l'Afrique. Un pays continent, dit-on, de par sa grandeur géographique. Sa singularité tient au fait qu'elle possède de grandes ressources naturelles, une grande biodiversité, des vastes étendues de végétation et des ressources hydriques conséquentes. Un scandale géologique, dit-on, de la République démocratique du Congo. En effet, les gisements congolais contiendraient plus de 1100 minéraux et métaux précieux recensés, dont les plus exploités sont le cuivre, le cobalt, le diamant, l'or, le manganèse et des métaux rares comme les coltans et le lithium. Outre ces ressources géologiques, la République démocratique du Congo possède aussi d'autres atouts non de moindre valeur. La République démocratique du Congo représente la 2e plus grande forêt tropicale au monde, avec 152 millions d'hectares de forêts. Ces forêts la classent en 2e rang du poumon mondial après l'Amazonie, sans oublier qu'elle dispose également des ressources impressionnantes en faune et en flore. Malgré ces immenses et riches ressources, la République démocratique du Congo figure parmi les pays les moins avancés de la planète et donc parmi les pays les plus pauvres, dont la grande majorité de sa population vit dans des conditions très précaires. Parlons un peu de l'extractivisme en République démocratique du Congo. La République démocratique du Congo s'avère être un puits géostratégique inépuisable et incontournable auquel on se réfère constamment. Et dans presque toutes les mutations socio-technologiques et spatio-temporelles du monde, les ressources naturelles de la République démocratique du Congo ont souvent été sollicitées et exploitées de fond en comble. Manifestement, ces ressources s'imposent comme auxiliaires ou accompagnateurs du processus de développement de l'humanité. Ainsi, on peut bien constater que d'innombrables découvertes et progrès scientifiques portent l'empreinte minérale de la République démocratique du Congo. Et d'ailleurs, l'histoire nous renseigne qu'entre les années 1880 et 1900, la création d'usines de bicyclettes et automobiles en Europe et aux États-Unis a fait naître un immense besoin de caoutchouc pour la fabrication des pneus. La République démocratique du Congo, à l'époque, État indépendant du Congo de Léopold II, est ce pays qui possédait la plus vaste forêt d'arbres à caoutchouc. Et donc, le roi Léopold II détenait une mine d'or blanc pour pouvoir fournir les caoutchoucs au marché mondial, et d'ailleurs à un rythme infernal. Évidemment, plus il fournissait du caoutchouc en grande quantité, plus il s'enrichissait, mais aussi plus les cadavres s'amoncelaient. Et donc, vous allez constater que la violence était utilisée comme stratégie pour accroître la quantité de caoutchouc. À titre d'exemple, les populations du Congo étaient tenues de livrer une tonne de caoutchouc par jour, en raison de 10 kilos par individu et par jour. De nombreux villageois congolais ont été victimes des mains droites coupées et d'autres étaient froidement abattus, tout simplement parce qu'ils n'avaient pas atteint les quotas de 10 kilos par jour. Après le caoutchouc, ce fut le rôle important du cuivre et du cobalt, puis celui de l'uranium utilisé dans les bombes atomiques à l'âge nucléaire. Et après, ce fut les palmiers à huile pour la révolution de la savonnerie. Et aujourd'hui, c'est le tour du cobalt et du coltan, ces ingrédients incontournables pour la civilisation électronique. Pour ces richesses immenses, l'extractivisme utilisé pour s'en procurer a toujours été violent et sanguinaire. Et donc, loin d'être un facteur de richesse et de développement pour les pays, les ressources de la République démocratique du Congo sont synonymes de violence et de sang. Les hommes et les femmes du Congo sont morts et continuent à mourir en masse dans des conditions souvent atroces, victimes de nombreuses exactions, et cela depuis la nuit des temps. Malheureusement, la République démocratique du Congo se trouve encore aujourd'hui au cœur des enjeux stratégiques à cause des minéraux essentiels qu'elle possède. Et donc, la République démocratique du Congo dispose des plus grandes réserves de cobalt et du coltan recherchées par tout le monde. Elle détient, tenez, à elle seule, près de la moitié des réserves mondiales de cobalt et 80% de la réserve mondiale de coltan, sans oublier le lithium. Le cobalt, essentiel pour la fabrication des batteries nouvelle génération, pour les voitures électriques, est perçu comme alternative pour la transition écologique et la lutte contre les émissions de gaz à effet de serre et le réchauffement climatique. Le coltan, quant à lui, reste un ingrédient essentiel pour la fabrication des tablettes, smartphones, ordinateurs portables, etc. Vous comprendrez alors que les violences souvent liées à l'extractivisme sont loin de quitter la République démocratique du Congo. Et la question fondamentale serait de savoir où et comment extrait-on le cobalt et les coltans? Qui extrait ces minéraux? Quels sont les risques réels et les conséquences de l'extractivisme en rapport avec ces minerais? Qui sont les consommateurs finaux du cobalt et du coltan dans notre monde aujourd'hui, dans notre société? Évidemment, l'essentiel du cobalt est extrait en République démocratique du Congo. Et comme je venais de le dire, la République démocratique du Congo est le premier producteur mondial de ces minerais. Et donc 60% de la production mondiale du cobalt vient de la République démocratique du Congo, de la province du Lualaba, dans le sud-est du pays, principalement dans la ville de Kolwezi, qui est le chef-lieu de cette province et qui est considérée aujourd'hui avec raison comme la capitale mondiale du cobalt. Et donc 80% de la production du cobalt en République démocratique du Congo vient de l'exploitation industrielle avec des multinationales occidentales, américaines, asiatiques plutôt voulais-je dire, installées dans le pays. Et 20% vient de l'exploitation artisanale dont les produits sont récupérés in fine par les multinationales. À ce jour, il existe dans la province du Lualaba plus de 25 entreprises minières et plus de 30 zones d'exploitation artisanale tolérées. L'exploitation industrielle se fait sur une grande échelle. Évidemment, elle exige des gros investissements, des installations fixes de grande taille et l'utilisation des procédés industriels qui passent par la mise en évidence d'un gisement, l'extraction, le traitement et la transformation des substances minérales. Les compagnies internationales présentes en République démocratique du Congo détiennent donc des mines gigantesques qui fonctionnent généralement 24 heures sur 24 heures sans interruption parce qu'il faut produire et produire davantage. Et je dirais, nous assistons à une exploitation vertigineuse du cobalt. Je dirais même à un pillage systématique et sauvage des minerais. Je dis ça pourquoi? Parce que les activités extractives sont souvent accompagnées de beaucoup de violences, dont les déforestations, les dépossessions des terres, les délocalisations forcées, les pollutions de l'eau, des sols, de l'air, des graves atteintes à la dignité de la personne humaine et aux droits fondamentaux. À cela s'ajoutent des graves violations de droits du travail. Et la plupart des employés dans les mines industrielles déplorent les conditions odieuses de travail, parfois inhumaines, dans lesquelles ils sont, notamment les mauvaises conditions de travail, les maigres salaires, les discriminations. On constate également que plusieurs employeurs s'arrangent à entretenir des journaliers, c'est-à-dire des employés non liés à un contrat de travail, alors que ceux-ci prestent des années durant. Cela leur permet d'avoir une main-d'œuvre moins chère. Les minimums d'avantages sociaux reconnus aux travailleurs par la législation du travail de la République démocratique du Congo n'est pas toujours de mise. C'est le cas du droit au logement, de l'accès aux soins médicaux, à l'indemnité de la scolarité des enfants, etc. Les défis sont aussi énormes et complexes en termes d'impact sanitaire et environnementaux. Selon les ingénieurs des mines que nous avons eu à consulter, la production du cobalt s'est faite généralement par voie hydrométallurgique, c'est-à-dire la voie humide, impliquant l'utilisation de l'acide sulfurique. Et par conséquent, 99% des roches traitées sont réduites en déchets sous forme de rejets miniers liquides ou solides. Outre ces déchets toxiques dont la gestion pose souvent problème, l'exploitation minière implique également l'émission de la poussière, souvent riche en cobalt et en plomb, avec pour conséquence des problèmes de santé publique. Il faut cependant noter que ces impacts environnementaux et sanitaires sont dynamiques ou restent dynamiques dans la durée, parce que parfois invisibles, latents, mais susceptibles de compromettre la vie des générations futures. Dans les mines artisanales, les conditions de travail sont encore très précaires et très dangereuses. L'exploitation se fait avec des moyens très rudimentaires parce que nous parlons de l'exploitation artisanale. Et les mineurs artisanaux travaillent souvent dans des galeries où il fait extrêmement sombre, ce qui les expose aux nombreuses maladies respiratoires. Mais malheureusement, ils sont par-dessus tout exploités par les propriétaires des comptoirs d'achat des minerais, qui sont généralement des grandes entreprises et qui fixent le prix des minerais à leur guise. La partie est de la République démocratique du Congo est ravagée par de guerres meurtrières permanentes depuis plus de 20 ans. La plus grande, d'ailleurs, on parle même de la plus grande crise mondiale et qui a fait des millions de morts face à un silence de mort. Le monde entier sait bien que derrière les armes se cachent des enjeux économiques de portée mondiale. Malheureusement, des élites politiques, des groupes armés ou groupes ethniques sont instrumentalisés aux fins d'alimenter la violence, de maintenir l'instabilité du pays, tout simplement pour favoriser l'exploitation illégale du cobalt et d'autres ressources naturelles, évidemment, et faciliter l'accès aux minerais sans aucune formalité et à moindre coût. Pour les coltans, les hommes, les femmes, les jeunes, les enfants sont décapités, dégorgés, dépiécés, sauvagement tués par fusil ou armes blanches. Et quand je parle d'armes blanches, je peux citer machettes, haches, couteaux, marteaux. Nous avons des enfants qui sont séparés de leur famille, non accompagnés lors des déplacements. Des enfants exploités dans les mines artisanales, enrôlés des forces dans les groupes armés. Nous avons des villages incendiés, des infrastructures, des bases détruites au quotidien, notamment les maisons d'habitation, des bâtiments administratifs, des écoles, des églises, des structures sanitaires. Un véritable drame. Et tout ça pour des raisons économiques. Une des plus grandes crises de notre époque fait un silence du monde entier pour qui seul le coltan compte. Seul le coltan reste prioritaire à l'ère de la révolution électronique. Les femmes sont celles qui payent les lourds tributs de cette économie parce que violées, dépouillées de leurs époux, de leurs enfants, de leurs terres, de leurs eaux, de leurs forêts, dépourvues de leurs moyens d'existence et de leurs moyens de subsistance. Les véhicules électriques, comme alternative pour la transition écologique, ont besoin des batteries, évidemment, qui à leur tour ont besoin des métaux dont les cobaltes pour leur fabrication. Partout dans le monde, Les gens dépendent aujourd'hui de plus en plus des batteries rechargeables pour alimenter leurs téléphones portables, leurs tablettes, leurs ordinateurs portables, leurs appareils photo et d'autres appareils électroniques portables. Ces batteries, certes, ont besoin du cobalt et du coltan, minéraux essentiels pour leur fabrication. En termes d'impact positif possible, ces minerais sont une opportunité de développement pour la République démocratique du Congo si leur exploitation et leur gestion s'est fait de manière rationnelle, si elle a des retombées positives sur la vie des populations impactées. Parce qu'elles peuvent engendrer de nouvelles recettes publiques abondantes en termes d'investissement direct étranger, des recettes d'exploitation, d'impôts et autres taxes qui permettent ou qui permettraient de construire le pays. Cependant, il faut les signaler quand même, la forte demande de ces minéraux sur les marchés mondiaux aujourd'hui comporte également des défis importants pour les gouvernements congolais, mais aussi pour les entreprises, notamment des risques exacerbés de corruption, mais aussi des impacts environnementaux importants possibles et les violences sous multiples formes pour les populations impactées. L'extractivisme auquel nous assistons privilégie les profits et ne tient pas compte ni de l'humain ni de l'environnement. Il constitue un crime, et je dirais même un crime contre l'humanité. Il est inacceptable et devrait normalement être condamné et sanctionné par tous. Autant nous avons besoin d'un monde juste, d'un environnement propre, sans pollution, autant nous avons besoin d'une économie juste et propre. Autant nous réfléchissons aujourd'hui sur des stratégies pour lutter contre les réchauffements climatiques, autant le monde devrait trouver des stratégies pour une exploitation rationnelle des ressources naturelles de nos pays. Nous ne pouvons pas parler de transition écologique si elle est construite sur le sang. Des engagements courageux s'imposent à tous pour une économie propre, juste et qui met l'homme au centre. La violence ne pourrait être un facteur de développement durable. La violence de l'extractivisme prépare d'autres formes de violence et met toute notre société en insécurité. Il n'y a pas de développement durable face à l'extractivisme auquel nous assistons. Je voudrais terminer par les paroles du pape François lors de sa dernière visite en République démocratique du Congo et aussi par un proverbe africain. Évidemment, le pape, quand il parlait pour l'Afrique en général. Et moi, je me permets d'utiliser ces paroles pour la République démocratique du Congo. Cessez de voir la République démocratique du Congo comme une mine à exploiter, comme une terre à dévaliser. Et en Afrique, on dit, celui qui boit de l'eau de la calebasse doit penser constamment à la source. Je vous remercie.
I invite everyone to maybe take a deep breath and say a prayer in your heart, whatever your faith tradition, for all those who are struggling in the face of environmental catastrophe, in the face of toxins and pollutions, in the face of the climate crisis. and to understand that, as Pope Francis articulated in Laudato Si, we are all bound together in this inextricable web. And that is what brings us here this evening. Each of our speakers has spoken passionately and profoundly from the front lines of the crises that we face. And we have some time for some questions for Sharon and for Brother Rodrigo. And I'd like to just start by inviting Dave Cochran from Loras College in Dubuque, Iowa, to unmute and ask his question. I think it's a very pertinent one to start out with. Thank you, Dave.
Well, thanks to all of you for organizing this and the speakers especially. I had a question for Sharon, our first speaker. What really struck me with your presentation was how persistent you and your group were in challenging corporate government officials, those who are in a position to do something about the petrochemical pollution in your community. And they often ignored you or brushed you aside. And so I was just wondering how you keep the hope, enough hope to keep pushing against those in power who seem not to want to respond.
Well, first of all, it's all because of God. When I spoke to God and he told me to fight, he put a fight in me that no man could take away from me. We pray a lot. One lady came from Lake Charles. She said God spoke to her and told her to tell me to do the Jericho March. I didn't know how to do the Jericho March, so she came from Lake Charles. We had about 3 or 4 ministers out there. We couldn't go on a property where Formosa wanted to be built, so we did it on top of the levee across from where the property is. And you see, Formosa's not here, huh? And she said, I asked her to come back since they appeal it. So she said to come back the end of this month or the beginning of next month. We're going to do another Jericho March. Before I got started, when this minister from Baton Rouge heard that I was fighting for Formosa Plastics, he came to St. James and looked for me. He went to Mount Calvary Baptist Church and he talked to one of the deacons, and they showed him where the property was. He went over there and he prayed over the property. Then he wanted to know where I live. So they told him, and he came to my house and he told me that that plan is not coming. And I said, I already know it's not coming because God spoke to me and told me to fight this plan. So I knew it wasn't coming. And then another lady came from New Orleans and we went near the property because, I can't go on the property anymore because they threatened to arrest me. They catch me on the property. So we went on the street next to the property and we prayed. And she prayed on the grounds and everything, said this was sacred grounds because our ancestors are buried there. And we prayed. There's 3 people that's confirmed that this plan is not going to come. I don't know how God is going to do it, but I believe in my heart Formosa Plastics is not coming to St. James Parish. So prayers is my answer to your question, prayers. When I feel down, depressed, I open my Bible, I read certain parts that this priest told me to read, and it refreshes me, and then I can go on. But that's my answer, prayers.
Thank you so much. Brother Rodrigo, how would you respond to that question? Because you as well face some really devastating tragedies that affect communities in Brazil.
Well, this is, I think, at least from what we've been seeing, it's a process of conversion that we are put in. Even though we realize we can calculate, we can preview the impacts, just like those 2 tailing dams, they were not natural impacts. It was caused by negligence. The mining company, it was a Brazilian and Anglo-Australian company. And the other one was the same Brazilian company. They knew it was going to happen. And it's incredible that the refactory of the mining workers was just a few meters from the walls of the dam. It's different than water dam. It's not a concrete. It's made of the same tailings. But I would say this is a process, and I think we need to be thankful to Pope Francis. In Laudato Si, he was calling us to do an ecological conversion. And it's interesting that in Laudate Deum, he's talking about a pilgrimage to go towards a different relation with the planet. And I think it's to be together. I think the first, it's to realize that we need to have compassion, to cry together, but at the same time, we need to start to ask, where are the roots of this? Where are the issues? It's incredible to see, and it happens in Latin America, but in Africa, it's big too, how the wealthy from nature gets easily in Europe, and the people dies in the Mediterranean Sea, while their gold, the diamonds, the cobalt, the lithium, and all this comes in. So I think the second, that to have compassion, to cry together, to understand what's happening, and then to starting to ask. And I think the example of the parish struggling against the pharmaceutical industry, or at least trying to understand and show to the people, look, this is not the way the world was done, you know. And then it's because God has united us to all creatures. Nonetheless, all this can isolated us from nature, but we are part of nature. There's something and I finish, that we sometimes don't realize, because we used to say that the incarnation, God assumed, became human. But as God as creator, we are all creatures, and we are all nature. When he became, in Jesus, he became nature too. So not only us are the ones who have dignity, but the whole system. And it's impossible to make it an economic asset.
Thank you so much for those responses. So the next question actually dovetails quite nicely into the conversation that we're having, and it was brought up by Dr. Danielle, who I think had to hop off the call. But Dr. Danielle is really wanting to know what you think about the idea that there's an inherent and sometimes insurmountable tension between environmental justice and religion due to the imperialist history, sometime neo-colonial present day attitudes in the religious institutions. In other words, environmental justice seems like the opposite of religion in a lot of spaces. How can we negotiate that tension? How can we navigate that tension with deference for the indigenous and marginalized voices of wisdom? So when religion doesn't embrace environmental justice, what do we do? What have you done? Each of you is very faith-driven, very anchored in faith. And I'm just curious, how do you navigate those who don't see that direct connection between environmental justice and religion?
Well, I would get back
Oh.
to the issue of the ecological conversion. You know, it's interesting that Pope Francis in Laudato Si, he talks that this conversion calls for a number of attitudes, which he says, which together foster a spirit of generous care, full tenderness. So I think he says like this: the first one, it entails gratitude and graciousness. It's a recognition that everything is God's loving gift, and then we need to be generous, and in some terms we need to look towards what he calls happy sobriety, to live in this, and it also entails a loving awareness that we are not disconnected from the whole, you know. So this is part of our spirituality, but we joined in a universal fraternity. And as believers, we do not look to the world from outside. We will look the world through the inside, and we live this enthusiasm that we have a responsibility. I come from a spirituality from St. Francis of Assisi, where he talks about Mother and Sister Earth. The planet is our sister, but at the same time, I'm a mother because it generates life. And it means at the same time that when he talks about this in the Canticle, he says that sustain us and govern us. So it's interesting to understand that the cycles of life, they need to be respected. It's not to say that a human can't intervene and be co-creator, but we can't be co-destructive. We can't destroy. So this is integral part of our Christian belief, and everything was done because of him, in face of Jesus.
So it sounds like you're well prepared to have this conversation when people don't quite see the connection yet. Let's go over to Sharon, because I saw your hand go up. You seem to be familiar with this. What do you do?
That's what I was going to say after he gave that wonderful speech. Just like I said, a lot of the politicians are not in favor of what we're doing. They are in the pockets of industry, but the people in the community realize that we are being sacrificed. And the only powerful thing, the tool that we have, is prayer. And we have to get that over to the ministers and to everyone, that this is God's earth, and God don't want us to destroy his earth. And I feel to believe in my heart that God is going to do something to stop this madness. And we as a people need to get together. And just like the video what the lady showed, oh, that just took my heart out. We need to get together all over the world and come together and find strategies, do something. We just can't not do nothing. And my daddy told me all the time, prayer changes things. That's the number one key to all of our issues, prayers. And I believe in prayers. So I think that we need to bring that out more so we can save Mother Earth and save our lives, save this environment.
Well, I like your approach, Sharon, of, go get those ministers on board. If they're not out there in the streets with us, it's high time, and perhaps, God is asking for that.
That's right.
So you are the messenger. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have another question. Could Jorge Dr. Lero join us? I hope I said your name right, but please feel free to correct me and join us with your question.
Okay, sure. Now I am unmuted so I can talk. I have a bad lighting here. I hope you don't mind. My question is, well, first of all, my observation is that these were powerful images that you guys have presented today. But reality is that the world is constantly dealing with war and the environmental disasters that are killing human beings. Sadly, in all of these disasters, the bottom line has been money and political power. Whether we like it or not, that's the reality. What efforts do you think that local churches could do to impress on their members to make an effort to redefine what is really important in our lives, the way Saint Francis of Assisi did and the way Mother Teresa did? By that I mean, excuse me, they just went to the very basic. They were in a big advantage over us right now because we don't have social media, we don't have all of this news bombarding us with what's happening here right now, and all this and all that. But what they did was that, from what I can remember, was that they went into action according to their beliefs, not pointing fingers at anyone. And my next question is it okay for us to challenge Pope Francis to do the same thing? Because it is in my observation that the way he's calling for this dialogue is a little too, first world kind of way of doing it. He's a great pope. He's a great pope, but I think we have to challenge it to start from where he's at. What is the Pope? What is the Church, the Vatican itself, willing to sacrifice to make an impact about environmental justice?
Great. So what can our local churches do? What can we ask them to do? And then what can the church on a large scale do? Sharon or Rodrigo, any responses to that?
I think, well, to respond what the Vatican wants to do, it's hard. I'm not there. But I know what many of us in the church are doing like St. Francis, embracing. St. Francis didn't appoint, but what he did appointed. When he went outside the walls of Assisi and went to the lepers and embraced the lepers and went to live with them, this was powerful. This was strong. And he was coming from the social class that was gained power. His father was a merchant, salesman. Well, he wasn't a noble. He wanted to go to the Crusades, but then he preferred to go there and embrace the Sultan and talk about peace. So how, I think the question is, how do we commit to make this world more beautiful? Of course, to commit, we're going to have some problems. We're going to face problems. Well, but there's no surprise. Jesus didn't die because of a disease or old in his bed, because the power didn't like him, and they felt him as a threat. So I think here it's something that we can't lose in the church. with all the loving message, sometimes a loving message becomes a strong prophecy that points to the necessity of change, because sometimes it's too obvious. I'm just to understand. Sister Nathalie was talking about the demand for lithium. The demand for lithium, just with batteries, will increase 40 times by 2040. Demand more cobalt, graphite, nickel, etc. 20 to 25 times. What the scientists are saying, we don't have resources for this. So unfortunately, the message is not good. But we need to dialogue. So it's a pilgrimage that we have to do, to go towards. We are the only ones who are able to go towards. We can go towards for embrace. The embrace can offend some, unfortunately, but it's full of love.
Thank you for that. Sharon, what would you like to add on this conversation of how we can ask our churches to do more?
I feel like if Pope Francis would send the message down to our leaders in the church, I think they would follow his lead. And I feel like the ministers would get on board, because I'm a Catholic and my priest, he don't mention about the environment. And some of the people are against what I'm doing in the Catholic Church, in the Baptist Church also. And they think that I'm stopping jobs, but I'm really saving their lives and saving the environment, and want to get clean air, clean water, clean soil. And instead of the church join with us, they are not. And that makes it hard. But I think if the Pope send the message down to the ministers, I think it would be powerful, more powerful than what it is now. I think he's the key. He's our leader. So if he can't bring the message down, let me go and meet with him, and I'll tell him to bring it on down.
All right, I think everyone wants to send Sharon to meet with the Pope. We can all get behind that.
Thank you. Thank you.
We can pray on that.
Yes, yes.
So I want to thank you both for sharing the work that you're doing, the stories, for bearing witness and inviting us to bear witness, as you said, Brother Rodrigo, to go out into the places that have become the leper societies in our economic and environmental situation, and embrace them with love, to be willing to bear the suffering, to bear witness, and to be willing to do the deep inner work so that we can show up again and again and again in solidarity with one another. Thank you both for joining this call tonight, and also to Sister Nathalie for her important message. And I'm going to hand it back over to Michelle to close us out this evening. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your stories, for being here, and for everyone who came to this call, for all who watched on Facebook, for everyone who asked questions, and for everyone who will be watching this in the weeks to come.